I got this board from Walmart, and I started by just taking a 220 grit sandpaper and just giving it a light sanding. The wood was a little bit rough. And then I'm going to take some Wise Owl chocolate paint. And now my brush was a little wet, and I want to go over the wood very lightly, not with a lot of paint. And I want to give it the appearance as if I was staining it. And I did that until the entire board was covered. And I allowed that to dry, and as you can see, you can still see some of the wood grain. And you can certainly leave it like that, but this isn't going to match my next step. So I covered it with the Wise Owl black paint. Now the reason I cover it is because when it's time to sand it and give it a distressed look, I prefer to see the chocolate paint underneath rather than the bare light wood. I set that aside to dry, and I found these floating shelves at the Dollar Tree. I got 2 of them, and they were $1 each. And then I found some gingham napkin, and whenever you're decoupaging with a napkin, you want to remove the number of plies that are on the package, and that's the different layer of napkins. Then I'm going to use a Gen foam brush and some Wise Owl 1-hour enamel clear. You can use Mod Podge if that's what you have on hand. And I'm just going to apply it to the front of the shelf and lay my napkin down. And then I'm going to do the bottom of the shelf with the same napkin. So you put your 1-hour enamel down first, and then lay the napkin on top of it. And then you're going to 1-hour enamel on top of all of that once the napkin is laid down. And then I like to take some saran wrap and just rub on top of it. This just helps get out the wrinkles, and if you have a brayer, this is when you would want to use that. Now, if you get your edges wet enough, you can peel the extra napkin off. Sometimes it's best to just leave it, let it dry, and then you can sand all that off. But it really depends the quality of the napkin, and you don't want it to tear into your project. I allowed that section to dry, and then I moved to the sides of my shelf. And I repeated the same steps. So I took my 1-hour enamel clear, I applied it with the Gen foam brush, I laid my napkin down, applied the 1-hour enamel on top of that. And now this is the same napkin I used for the front, so the extra layers were already removed. And then you can use some saran wrap to help get out any of the wrinkles or bubbles. I peeled off some of the extra napkin, and then I moved to the other side of the shelf. And then once I had everything dry, if you had any extra napkin, you can just take a very light grit sandpaper and just go around the edges of your shelf and just remove any of the excess napkin. So you just want to clean it up. And I completed both of the shelves, and as you can see, the napkin at the tops are not perfect. So what I did next to hide those imperfections, you sometimes get the ripping when you sand it off. I'm going to take some Wise Owl black paint, and I have the 1-hour enamel as my top coat from when I decoupaged. So I'm just using a little bit of the Wise Owl black, and I'm applying it with a Gen foam brush, and I just went around the entire shelf. And then I took a baby wipe, and you're just going to wipe off the black paint. And you can remove as much or as little as you'd like. And then the black paint will settle in those imperfections. And it'll also settle in the grooves of the shelf. And then I just let those dry. I did it to both shelves. Now, the shelves are about 7 inches long, so depending on what size board you're going to be using and where you want to place them, you'll have to do your own measurements of how to hang it. but I'm just going to mark off where I want my shelf to sit. And I did one on the left side and one on the bottom right side. And then I just screwed in my 2 screws. And then I just sat the shelf on top of them. And then I did the same thing to the bottom right shelf. Now I wanted to add a top coat, so I'm going to be using the Wise Owl Furniture Salve. And you should do this before you put your shelves back on. But they can just easily be removed by just sliding them up. So I'm using my palm brush to apply the Wise Owl Furniture Salve. And then you can wipe it off with a cotton cloth. And this just helps protect the wood and the paint. Now once that was all applied, then we just have this fun wall hanging that you can switch out year round, and you can display little knickknacks on top of your shelves. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Paint products can be found on our webpage at chalkitupfancy.com. And don't forget, you can check out some other tutorials over on our YouTube or our webpage. Have a great day.